Australian super trucks. They're big, they're fast, they're loud. And this weekend they fight for championship glory.
I'm defending this championship, and we've got a real hard haul today.
Amoroso's the man to beat at the moment. Steve Zammit and myself are a little bit behind him, but we're pretty neck and neck. So yeah, it's going to be a bit of a battle.
This is my 26th year, and no, I've never won a championship. We've come probably third, fourth in a couple of different ones, I said, but never actually pulled one off. So this would be something special. Not so much for me, actually. I think a lot more for Normie crew that's done so much work for me over the 26-year period, because I've got some of the boys in the crew still with me today that started off when I started racing.
With a guy like Frank, with all his experience over, the 26 years of racing super trucks, I'm pretty sure he's keen to win his first championship. So, anything's going to be possible out there, and I can guarantee you the old dresses are going to be left in the suitcase today, and we're all going to be out here like men and go toe to toe. So,
oh look, it actually is open. It's the first time in 26 years that there's actually 4 people battling for the championship. So it really could be anybody's. It's just a matter depends on which way the fat lady wants to sing.
And so Wakefield Park will play host to the championship decider. Hi-Tec Oils on board. The 2014 Australian Super Truck Series concludes today. And Lockie Mansell, a lot of guys watching, one man in particular, Frank Amoroso. Can he finally claim the championship he's long been wanting?
He's trying to break a 26-year drought this weekend, but he's coming under opposition from Steve Zammit, Paul Rangers, and also Bo Hewitt in contention to deprive him of that title. As we take a look at race 1 highlights on a wet circuit down into turns number 1 and 2 in wet weather conditions, and Bo Hewitt had it all locked up heading down into turn 2 and went spearing out through the gravel trap and dropped to the back of the pack.
You can imagine how hard it is getting these big heavy trucks pulled up in conditions as slippery as this. You're riding on board with your championship hopeful as Zammit ran wide. Wait for this for the re-entry, very close. Oh,
bit of a bump there with Frank Amoroso. Paul Rangers was able to fight his way through to the lead. Stephen Zammit drops back to third. Then there was this incident at turn 10, the final corner. John Von Burley getting down the inside of Shane Gray, who got forced wide off the circuit and was very lucky to rejoin before making contact with the wall. Barry Butwell got involved in the action, and he was able to fight his way up the inside of Gray through turn 2.
You don't want to get stuck out too wide on that final corner onto the pit straight and go understeering off. But Rangers will take the win, and Zammit will follow him home for second. But that's the real story right now, though. Amoroso coming to a stop just after the checkered flag after claiming third.
Yeah, not bad. Pretty diabolical conditions. It's pretty wet. These things don't like the wet too much. But yeah, good to start the day with a win. It's pretty good.
Yeah, definitely hectic. We got a bit of a slow start there off the front row with Big Paul down the other end, and yeah, went in the first corner, really slippery. Got to the top of the hill, went down to the fishhook, and yeah, unfortunately I locked a bit of a break up, run a bit wide, and let Paul and Frank come up the front. And yeah, it's going to be very interesting to finish this year off. But yeah, no, a little bit of a mistake on my side, but full credit to Paul down the end.
All right, Lockie, better conditions for race 2. Time to get into it. This championship battle still well and truly alive.
It certainly is. Stephen Zammit was able to take a couple of points out of Frank Amoroso in race number 1. So 12 points the margin between those two drivers heading into race number 2. The grid positions is determined based on the finishing positions from race number 1, which meant Rangers will start the race off pole position, and he's going to get down the inside of Stephen Zammit. The two trucks will run side by side into turns 1 and 2, and the bomber, John Von Burley, with it all crossed up, gets into the side of Frank Amoroso, gets into the back of John Falk, and that was pretty scary stuff for our current championship leader, Frank Amoroso. Very fortunate not to get taken out there.
Lucky boy. I thought he was gone then when we saw Von Burley all locked up with the big 96 sitting there in the windscreen waiting to get hit. He was lucky to get away with that one, Frank. So could that be the bullet that he needed to dodge? Could that be the bit of luck that he needs?
Bo Hewitt fighting his way back up through the field in the white truck as well. We saw that he had problems in race 1 when he went spearing off the road on the wet track, but now in the dry conditions, his truck working a lot better, and he's now fought his way up onto the tail of Amoroso.
Von Burley trying to make up now for some lost time, but Zammit now, your race leader, and trying to pull some more points back on Amoroso. This is the best way to do it, by wrestling that lead away from Rangers on the first lap.
There's the Tank World truck number 87 of John Falk making his return to truck racing, his first truck racing start for 2014. Been a while since we've seen him racing in the trucks, but always one of the front-running contenders whenever he comes out and has a play.
As Coulter just picking up a spot in one of the lighter trucks. It's the Hi-Tec Coulter Excavations truck, and a long way around the outside. This is going to be very brave if Falk can pull this off. Contact with Rangers, heavy contact, and the 87 slides out but prevails, and Amoroso looking to be the beneficiary of this little battle. He'll pick up at least Rangers. He should have the inside run down towards the next few corners.
Good heads-up driving there from Frank Amoroso. He saw the opportunity present itself as Rangers got balked after that contact with Falk, and Amoroso now back up into position 3. But this is a great battle. Look at that Falk, Amoroso, Rangers, Hewitt, Shane Gray not too far away either. Here's a replay of what happened. And
yeah, that was Bomberley going firing up the inside and heavy contact on the second corner.
Shane Gray was the one on the outside, and here's the incident between John Falk and Paul Rangers. Not a lot of space for two trucks to fit into turn 2 there, and it was Rangers who got checked up on the inside of the circuit.
So Falk comfortably in second. This gives Zammit a chance to back it off a little bit, and Hewitt around the outside as well. So everyone's having pot shots at Rangers by going the long way.
I think you'll find that Amoroso's actually up to second, so that's relegated Falk back into third position. Rangers now drag racing down the main straight with Shane Gray and Bo Hewitt. Hewitt was a bit slow there out of turn 10, so he loses that spot back to Rangers and also to Gray.
Lost all that momentum trying to go around the outside of Rangers, who's been a race winner on a few occasions so far this year, including earlier this year at this very track. Also raced at Winton throughout the series as well. And finally, we make our way back to Wakefield for the final round of the championship, riding on the back, looking behind the Kenworth of Shane Gray. It was getting a little bit taily.
Shane Gray's truck, of course, over from New Zealand. They run a truck series over there as well. Paul Rangers, who is in the red Volvo, actually having his bus. Well, we'll come back to that point because John Falk's just had a massive spin coming down the hill. The Tank World truck finds itself pointing in an awkward position across the racetrack. Fletcher Christian and John Bomberley both having to take invasive action to avoid him.
And that presented itself as a small chance there for Fletcher to take a spot off Rangers, but I think that still would have been under yellows. So he decided to back it off. Let's check this one out once more. It wasn't actually Rangers that Fletcher's looking up the inside of.
That was Bomberley, yes. But John Falk there, it looks like he drops the left rear wheel into the grass, and the truck rotated. Obviously still very damp off racing line after the wet conditions earlier in the day. A bit further back in the pack, that's Marcus Trillwitz trying to get up the inside of Fletcher Christian and running out of road at turn 10.
Oh, just overcooking it, doing a good job to get it back onto the racing surface. Shane Gray, who's been stalking the 9 of Rangers for a few laps, now comfortably up the inside. Rangers thinking about trying to get a good run out of 2. Up the hill, not going to happen, and the Kenworth moves up another spot.
Rangers having his last race meeting in the Super Trucks this weekend. His truck's been sold and is in fact heading over to New Zealand to race in the truck series over there. So Paul Rangers would no doubt like to go out on a high note.
Interestingly, and as you can imagine, probably for the better of safety as well, a lot of our marshal posts are being used with just safety lights instead of actually putting the flaggies out there with the big heavy trucks running around. And then comes the Isuzu of Michael Coulter. So the light truck with some issues and some interested onlookers seemingly helpless at the moment as Coulter will drop to the back of the pack.
There's Charlie Zammit going to see if he can help it. They've had all sorts of problems with that truck of Michael Coulter this year. It's been very fast when it's been running okay, but their downfall has been reliability as we head into the final lap. Stephen Zammit with the race lead at the moment ahead of Frank Amoroso.
Can Amoroso close that gap? Probably doesn't need to. Second right now in terms of the championship picture will be what he needs. Doesn't want to let any more points slip away from him though.
Well, the margin will be getting pretty tight if Steve Zammit keeps winning races. And here we go, the battle continuing between Shane Gray and Paul Rangers, who've been pretty much nose to tail for most of this race. Paul Rangers was ahead initially, but Shane Gray was able to fight his way past. And they're just a bit further ahead of Bo Hewitt, who is one of the championship contenders coming into this weekend, but has not really had the pace to fight it out with the front runners so far.
The Volvo of Paul Rangers trying to disrupt what could be 1, 2, 3 for Kenworth at the moment, but he's running out of corners if he's going to do something about it. Bo Hewitt's closing up the Victorian as well, and maybe running a little bit wide. That could open up a shot for Rangers in the dying few laps, but here comes your leader back into the front straight for the final time in race 2.
It's Stephen Zammit is going to just tighten up those pressure screws a little bit more with another race victory to take some more points out of the advantage for Frank Amoroso. 2 races down, there'll be 2 races left to go, and the battle's still on in the mid-pack. Paul Rangers looking out the back of his truck, Bo Hewitt and Shane Gray battling. So Rangers did manage to get ahead of Gray, and it looks like Hewitt's going to, oh, not quite. Gray will hold Hewitt out on the run to the line.
So it looked like he was going to lose 2 spots towards the end there, and it is a Volvo that sneaks into the top 3 in the hands of Paul Rangers, but the Kenworths proving their worth at the moment. Zammit closing back that championship picture once again. If he keeps winning races, it's going to make it very hard for Amoroso.
Yeah, no, definitely on. We're only about 8 points away from Frank now, and I've bridged a bit of a gap from Paul with a really good start in that race, so hopefully we can hold it together for the last 2 reverse gridders.
Apart from the start, what was the key to winning that race?
Just a little bit of that old Cummins horsepower, I think, mate. We just got a little bit on that little bit of Caterpillar down the other end, and I just hung on wide, and Paul's a bit of a gentleman and didn't push me out. So, no, it was very good, clean racing, and full credit to him for getting back up to where he started. So,
the points gap is closing. Zammit versus Amoroso. Who's going to win it? We'll find out after this. Just 2 races remain in the championship, though. 2014 Hi-Tec Oils Super Truck Championship. And Lockie, this was the reverse grid race that had all the excitement you could expect.
Again, held on a very damp circuit, and it was John Thorpe who took the early lead. Of course, he spun out of proceedings in race number 2, but the silver lining in that was he got a good starting spot for race number 3. So he fought his way to the early lead as Kevin Anderson in the white truck took an alternative line for turn 2.
I think that was I'm looking in my mirrors, seeing lots of heavy machinery coming my way and getting out of the way. But what a battle this turned out to be between Rangers and your championship hopeful himself, Frank Amoroso, having a little bit of a squirt in the dirt as Fletcher Christian came into the pits. The battle, though, between Rangers and Amoroso went into overtime.
Started to get a bit wetter, and unfortunately Paul Rangers spun on the approach to the official. He got collected by Frank Amoroso in what was a critical point in terms of the championship battle, and then the battle continued as both trucks rejoined. Amoroso wanted to get going again and did indeed, right into the side of Paul Rangers, spinning him around.
I don't think he was all that happy about being held up out in the racetrack, and as a result decided that he would settle it once and for all. Zammit, winner of a race so far this weekend, up the inside of Bo Hewitt, who's having troubles getting out of the final corner so far this weekend, and our race leader looping it around right in front of Zammit.
Yep, so this could have been another critical moment in the championship battle. Stephen Zammit just avoiding T-boning the Tank World entry of John Thorpe. That gave Bo Hewitt a sniff of the race lead, and he took it as well, but Zammit was pretty eager to fight his way back into the top placing.
Blocking those rears, a little bit of bumper-to-bumper action. That's what I mean right there. Hewitt struggling to get the drive out of it. Zammit would take the win, but speaking about overtime, whack! Heavy contact with Kevin Anderson after the checkered flag. That was an exciting race 3.
Oh yeah, it was a bit eventful, wasn't it? That's yeah, I came around through under braking into the official and made a mistake and looped it round and copped a bit of a T-bone from Frank, but no, that wasn't his fault. That was all good. And then we got going, and yeah, it looks like he, I don't know. I'll reserve my jump until I see the footage, but it looked pretty clear to me that he just drove me around. So it's a bit uncalled for, a bit unfortunate, but hey, well, that's Frank and that's racing.
Unfortunately, Paul turned around in front of me, and it was completely square in front of me, and I actually T-boned and only just, well, not a mark on it, actually, I didn't touch it. I put it straight into the reverse and backed off him to get going, and he's got going at the same time, and we've come onto the track, and I'm still accelerating, Paul's accelerating. I thought we would have actually got through together, but he got turned around, unfortunately. Wasn't meant, it was just one of those things.
He is an eventful man at the best of times, and now he has one more race to clinch the championship he's longed for.
And this is going to be an absolute blockbuster with just 3 points now separating Stephen Zammit from Frank Amoroso. The track now very wet. It is pouring with rain at Wakefield Park, and another reverse grid format for the 10-lap Super Prix.
Frank Amoroso has been so aggressive in the reverse grid races so far this year. Needs to keep that up right now, but look who's right on the rear bumper, so to speak. It is Zammit. And everyone being very cautious on approach. Off goes Anderson, and you'll lose 1 or 2 spots down at turn 2.
The problem with the light trucks is there's not a lot of weight over the rear axles, and that makes them a real handful. They can barely drive at road car speeds around Wakefield Park in these wet weather conditions. So we go on board with Barry Butwell, who's up behind John Falk. The other problem in this weather, of course, is that visibility decreases quite significantly, and you can see Butwell having trouble there just identifying where he needs to go.
Fancy fighting out a championship in these conditions, as if these things weren't hard enough to drive. Throw them out there in the wet with all the changeable attitudes to it, and off goes Zamet.
Wow, could that be a championship-changing moment? Can he get back on? He gasses us up, and he will get back onto the racetrack, but he's dropped a bundle of spots with that critical error on the run down the hill.
The thing just pushed clean off the racetrack at the end of a corner. He was trying to get the power back on, and just a massive amount of understeer, and range is now sideways as well. Oh, you can hear him trying to get the power down. Skatey conditions. Look how heavy the rain is.
So John Bomberley now leads the race. Marcus Prilwitz is in second position, the Super Truck Racing rookie, not doing a bad job in these treacherous conditions. Then it's Amoroso, then it's Falk, then Butwell ahead of Zamet. So Zamet's got some work to do here. It's not good enough for him to finish behind Amoroso. Zamet really needs to get up ahead of Amoroso if he's to be any chance of winning this championship, as we see Butwell and Falk drag racing down the main straight.
What a place to be fighting. Approach of turn one, very fast and slippery part of the racetrack. Amoroso gets around another one. Needs to keep ticking them off.
So Amoroso has overtaken Marcus Prilwitz and now runs second behind John Bomberley.
Oh.
But you can just see how tailored these trucks are. Oh, and off goes Gray.
Grey skies overhead, and Shane Gray slips off. You're watching off the back of Paul Rangers, and that's a long right-hand corner, which essentially starts in turn one and ends almost at the approach of turn three, and that's what can happen.
Here's a replay of Barry Butwell. He was trying to get down. That must have been at turns 1 and 2 on the opening lap of the race, down the inside of Kevin Anderson, and was then lining up for a move on John Falk. And here's the mistake from Stephen Zamet, where he went off the road, heading down the hill, turn 6, and he lost a couple of spots. John Falk was able to get through, so too was Barry Butwell.
So the Super Prix is throwing up a few super surprises at the moment. And at the moment, the championship lies in the hands of Frank Amoroso. After all these years, he needs to keep it on the island, though, because these conditions can catch him out. And if he slips off and falls back behind Zamet, that could throw the championship up in the air once again. Here we go, down the front straight with rain falling everywhere. Check out the speed and the mist.
John Bomberley's gone. He's bolted away to a commanding lead now over Frank Amoroso, who's got this queue of trucks behind. Can't get too close, though, because of the amount of spray that's being thrown up.
Oh, Butwell sideways and throwing it to the inside at turn 2 to try and avoid contact with the Tank World Super Truck ahead of him, John Falk, and maybe Zamet could pick up a spot as a result.
The man who's really impressed so far in this race is Marcus Prilwitz, only in his first year of Super Truck racing, and is holding down a very solid third position ahead of some much more experienced drivers.
Such a tight and twisty circuit for the big trucks, and now Zamet's resorting to some heavy-handed tactics to try and get back onto the bumper of Amoroso, who sits a few trucks ahead of him. He's getting impatient now, being held up, wants to get around them, but needs to be careful still.
In these conditions, though, Chad, it's just so hard to overtake, isn't it? Because of the lack of visibility and the lack of grip off the racing line.
Falk is starting to slow a bit here, and it's banking them all up behind him. Has he got a problem?
Butwell gets up the inside of him. Zamet will follow him through. Or will he? John Falk doesn't want to make it easy for Steve Zamet and forces him to the left as they head into turn 9.
This is just all time that he can't afford to lose. Meanwhile, towards the front, Amoroso still sitting in second. Pruitt's doing a good job in behind him, and Zamet frustrating, trying to get his way back towards the front.
And if Amoroso can finish in second, that would be well and truly good enough for him to win the championship. But can you just imagine, Steve, Frank Amoroso must be hearing every noise that truck's making at the moment. This would be an agonisingly slow race for him as we have a look at this moment from Barry Butwell at turn 2. Once again, where he had to take to the grass in the infield to avoid making contact with Falk.
Actually did a pretty good job considering that thing was backing around so heavily to avoid making contact with anyone and to avoid making that anyone else's problem. Here's Zamet. He's still fighting away. And the frustration showing, and off he goes.
Off again, this time at the fishhook, and ends up down in the escape road. area of the circuit, so that's a long way off the road, and his chances of taking the fight up to Frank Amoroso slipping further and further out of his reach.
There's Anderson in the light truck getting lapped by the leaders coming through in second and third. Like you said earlier, Prilwin's doing a great job at the moment given these conditions. Running strong.
Kevin Anderson's being lapped now, so he's had absolutely no pace in these conditions at all. And here we go. This is the other moment for Stephen Zammit. He was on the outside of Butwell heading into the fish hook, and just absolutely no grip out there whatsoever, and found himself ploughing on straight ahead down the hill, down into the escape road. Here comes John Bomberley. He's the runaway race leader in this one. He's got almost the whole main straight lead ahead of Frank Amoroso, and is lining up to put a lap on Shane Gray, who clearly is struggling with some sort of problem, just limping around.
So the rain seems to have just cleared slightly. It's still very wet on the racing surface, and it's very easy to get the back end of these trucks to swing around.
What's the technical term? It's not drier, it's just less wet.
Barely as well, but the mist is still a real problem, not to mention the diesel smoke trying to see through that. It looks like it's still raining when you're up behind another truck.
So Steve Zammit, after making those couple of mistakes, he's caught back up to the Barry Butwell, but once again he'll struggle to find a way past here, and as fast as Stephen Zammit's truck's been in the dry, it hasn't been anywhere near as competitive in the wet. You have to say that in the wet weather conditions, Frank Amoroso's had the advantage.
Yeah, Frank Amoroso doing what he needs to do at the moment to close out that championship. Rangers with the back end of the truck sliding up momentarily, and Falk in front of him, seeing that he's got the two guys that have won all the races so far this weekend behind him. Needs to focus on what's ahead of him though. Rangers a little bit sideways, and Zammit gets one back.
Here comes Frank Amoroso into turn 10. Barry Butwell's caught up to Amoroso, and Amoroso a little bit wide there at turn 10. Butwell gets up the inside. Amoroso out into the grass. So once again, found the grip limit there off the racing line. Experienced his understeer, and he'll drop back into third position.
Still needs to be careful, because if he goes slipping off the racetrack, he could have given the championship back as Butwell swings past and relegates Amoroso back to third. But doing enough though to take the championship at the moment. Let's check out this replay, and just massive amount of understeer off into the mud.
Problem is that these trucks run on what are, for all intents and purposes, slick tyres, so they really are a handful to drive in these conditions as we head onto the final lap. 2.2 kilometres of racetrack left for Frank Amoroso to negotiate before he breaks the 26-year drought. He was one of the men on the grid when truck racing first started in Australia back in 1988, and we've seen legends of the sport like Rodney Crick, Russell, and of course Bob Middleton come and go in that time. Frank Amoroso's always been there, but yet to win a championship.
Inky Tulloch, the Cedars family, big families in terms of truck racing in this country. And finally, Frank Amoroso will get to nail down his name onto the list of champions of the Australian Super Truck Series. Final corner though for John Bomberley, who will win the final race of the championship, but it's Amoroso who will win the series for 2014 after so many years of trying.
Checkered flags out. What a comprehensive win for John Bomberley, but here comes the man of the moment now out of the last corner. What a great performance, what an exemplary drive in such challenging weather conditions. As we see, there's always drama somewhere in a super truck race. And just to finish it off, John Ford spins it out of the last corner.
Right in front of Zammit, who's had an absolute horror race to round off his championship campaign. Amoroso's across the line in third, and then it's Rangers, Zammit a long way off the pace and not doing enough to take that championship away. Congratulations though, Frank Amoroso, and also John Bomberley.
Frank Amoroso, the 2014 Australian Super Truck champion, and he will be celebrating long and hard with his team.
We had a little bit of bad luck during the year. We were doing a little bit of development work with the truck, and we've got it to sort of getting there now. And sometimes this truck's a little bit probably better handling in the wet sometimes, you know. But look, it was a great race, and there's a great opportunity to get a first place in the Super Prix in a 10-lapper.
Congratulations to Bomberle, but I've got to say, Lockie, in terms of a championship fight, you can't ask for something much more exciting than what we just witnessed.
6 points, the final margin between Frank Amoroso and Steve Zammit at the end of the Super 3. Paul Rangers finishes third in his final season of Super Truck Racing, and it's very emotional. Frank Amoroso was congratulated by the category manager, Charlie Zammit.
So many years of trying. Let's hear from our championship winner.
Get out of the way, mate. Congratulations, 26 years in the making. How are you feeling?
Oh, absolutely on top of the world. I'm speechless. I drove the absolute wheels off the truck in that last race, and I knew it all counted, so I just put my head down and bum up and did the best I could, and fantastic outcome. I just got to thank my crew, my wife, the other teams, everybody. Just thank you so much for everyone's help. It could have never been done without them.
Well, there you go, Lockie. 2014 is done. I think it's fair to say Frank Amoroso's aggression got him to the front, and the passion brought home the championship.
And also that great drive in such challenging weather conditions as well, where his experience really came to the fore.
Thanks for your expertise, Lockie, throughout 2014. We cannot wait to see the Hi-Tec Oil Super Trucks back next year. We'll see you then.